the marketing capability, the operational capability, you know, if you're talking about 50% increase, 20% faster conversion, and what are the outcomes of that? You know, I'm sitting here now with a portfolio that's 99% occupied. That's 20,000 apartments at 99% occupancy.
I'm down at ICC in Darling Harbour here for the Agentforce Salesforce World Tour, and as you can see, this place is absolutely cranking. There's apparently 10,000 people attended the keynote, which is very impressive. They had demos for Australia Post and Pandora, which sells jewelry, I think. Yes, jewelry. And they also had one for like a field service, which was really impressive. But yeah, you can see here, they've got Build Your First Agent over here, which is just sitting down with tables with experts. That line is double back all the way down there and around. Huge amount of interest. And to get 10,000 to Sydney for one of these conferences is very impressive. There's a lot of buzz. Sessions that I've been to so far have been really impressive. I just went to one now where they're talking about how human in the loop is being replaced by human at the helm. Essentially, you're using agents to go up the stack and do the approvals, and then the human is then monitoring that at a much higher level. You wouldn't believe that this whole place here is rows and rows of people doing certifications, because if you do a certain amount today, you can get, I think, some swag. It might be those plush toys at the back there. But yeah, I've never seen so many people sitting down doing certifications at a conference. It's like 5 tables of people. Crazy. So we're just about to go now to a media and analyst roundtable with some of the customers. I think it might be with Xero actually, and going to talk about how to complete the last mile for implementing agents in your business, which is what everyone is really concerned about at the moment, is how to get these things to work. All right, more later. The media and analysts panel was one of the better ones I've attended. The panelists were Anouk Darling, CEO of Scape Australia, a company that builds and operates apartment accommodation for students. Anouk claims that AI agents have made some operations 50% more efficient and increased sales conversion by 20%, which could mean anything. But the top line number was pretty convincing. Scape has, and Anouk says, these AI agents have helped them hit an occupancy level of 99%. It's pretty hard to beat that. Also on the panel was Nigel Piper, the Executive General Manager of Customer Experience at Xero. Now, I use Xero and haven't really seen any evidence of these agents, but Nigel shared some pretty useful insights about how Xero was rolling out these agents internally. And from Salesforce, there was Sanjana Paralekar, Senior Vice President of Product Marketing. Sanjana is one of the people overseeing the implementation of agents throughout Salesforce, the whole of the company. And she was making major claims about how agents are transforming the business, etc. But she really knew what she was talking about, and she made some great points. So definitely worth having a listen to what she has to say. The guy in the end is Frank Filman, GM of Australia and New Zealand, who gave the keynote earlier and moderated the panel. If you'd like to see the full transcript of the panel, you can download it from the link in the description below. In the meantime, here are the highlights.
You know, every CEO in the country is going to tell you they're investing in AI. But those who succeed are those who are going to be honest enough about where their businesses are broken. And, you know, that's the point of the customer, journey mapping. And that's where we started. We were like, where are there huge amounts of repetitive volume? Where is there pain? And how can we be highly responsive when you think about our audience? And for those of you that heard Frank's keynote this morning, he probably mentioned the expectation economy. So yes, our customer is 18 to 24-year-old students. They expect immediacy. They expect to be in their language, on their terms, like no student has ever answered the phone, ever. So that means agentic AI, chatbots, WeChat, website, and taking away the friction and the pain and converting that to immediacy. So that helps our teams, our internal teams, to actually focus on what matters, which is building relationships and creating a home of belonging, which is ultimately what we want to stand for. So agentic AI and AI becomes essential, but it becomes part of a process that combines human capability and insight with actual objectives, responsiveness, and removing friction. If there's no owner, no urgency and no outcome, it's a hobby. So that gets put to the side. In terms of how we pilot, we have to start at the very beginning. We have to think about what objectives are we aiming for, but what are the rules and the governance and the protocols around what we're trying to deliver. This means that we need to iterate, we need to test, we need to learn. Where we've seen incredible results, and for me it's been mind-blowing. Mind-blowing in a way that I'm embarrassed that we used to actually do things manually. So when we have, for instance, 8,000 student arrivals in a couple of weeks, within a couple of weeks period, they raise 40,000 cases. Could be as simple as, how do I turn on my Wi-Fi, to how do I dispose of a chicken carcass? And no, it's not down the loo. Right. So all of this knowledge and all of these responses to cases is wrapped up in our agentic AI chats. And that means our teams don't have the pressure of responding to 40,000 requests and incidences that can be managed and automated on the way through. So that's at an operational level. And then if I move up or across the stack, and that's the other thing about the benefit of agentic AI is we used to be very siloed. So for instance, technology sits here, operations and teams on the ground sits here, marketing and sales sits here. This is now horizontal capability with a single customer view. And that's where the magic happens, because you also know about the student from arrival. You actually know about the student from acquisition stage, through the website, and particularly on the website. We've had actually 50% growth in acquisition. We've had 20% faster conversion through our chatbot, Chatty, which is on our website in WeChat and WhatsApp. In fact, Chatty's also been asked on dates by students. You remember 18 to 24-year-olds believe that the chatbot is actually a friend and a peer, so it's not uncommon. Yeah, unlike us who, are still in that sceptical stage, all the older people in the room. So the marketing capability, the operational capability, if you were talking about 50% increase, 20% faster conversion, and what are the outcomes of that? I'm sitting here now with a portfolio that's 99% occupied. That's 20,000 apartments at 99% occupancy. And I honestly believe it's through the automation and the agentic AI combined with our team's capability that has led us to that outcome.
What always strikes me is that the technology teams are often not sitting in the business. They haven't identified the issue. Teams are asked to build something or work on something, they don't know why. And I think that's been a really interesting shift. In my structure, for example, the customer tech actually sits right next to the experience teams, the success teams, and that's made a massive shift for us in terms of people who understand what the issue is, understand why they're building something, what's the outcome that we're looking to achieve. Again, it's a simple model, pick the problem, identify it well, what are you trying to achieve for it, and just be really clear about that. And I think, again, a lot of people try and boil the ocean, and that's very, very hard. That causes a lot of problem. Getting that stakeholder engagement, acceptance, support, it makes a big difference as well. Start with something that you can prove, be successful, and then you've got license or at least some credibility when you go and actually look to grow.
So how are we embedding AI and what's the training? The best way to experience AI is to experience it. And the best way to do that is to have the team and the team leads understanding the problems we're solving and then the benefit for themselves and also for our customers. So it's not so much about the training, it's about the doing. And it's also about the reward. So, for me and the teams, I want them to be able to focus on the things that they're proud of, that when they go home they can talk about, rather than the admin and the pain points, which without AI was sitting within. So it's an ongoing process, it's iterative. So tech you have to watch it. You have to have governance. It has to have checks and balances. We have to ensure that Chatty, for instance, on our website, isn't picking up patterns and behaviour and language that suddenly aren't on brand. Going all over the place with the chicken carcass story, etc. Small things, so learning small things for the team as well. Students say, which of your assets has a pool? Now, Chatty responded that every single one of our assets, 40 of them have a pool. We don't, we have 2, but they were thinking about a pool table. So it's about rules, it's about language, it's about understanding. Now for the teams, they take ownership of that. The teams who are in the sales team that are hungry to convert with their sales targets want to make sure that the information coming in is right. The marketing team who are responsible for generating the leads and bringing down cost per transaction need to track the journey. So everyone's invested to a common goal when we know the outcome. It's asking them, what are we embarrassed about that we're still doing manually? And if we're honest about that, then it's an easy adaptation, but it takes huge effort. So one of my colleagues earlier talked about the effort economy. And the effort economy is the fact that everyone is having to lean in across departments to embed AI in the business. It's not easy. It's a journey. We need third-party specialists. It's not something that happens naturally. It's in partnership with Salesforce and their teams. It's in partnership with their preferred contractors that help us enable and operate efficiencies of AI across the business. So it doesn't just happen. It isn't just an idea. It isn't just process mapping, knowledge transfer, setting up policies, governance. It is actually effort and ownership.
I think a couple things come to mind just to add on to what you both said. The first is, at Salesforce, we experience every single day we experience AI, and it's through Slack. And, there's 2 different ways that happens. The first on our journey was deploying Agentforce agents into Slack. And the important piece of that is Agentforce can manage knowledge. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you have an HR process, an IT process, or even just enabling our sales teams on the right content. I don't want that to be like the wisdom of crowds. I have very specific information that I want people to be getting from Slackbot, and you can do that now. But out of the box, Slackbot is going to get that wisdom of crowds and all of that information that you have access to inside of Slack to get you information. To prep for today, I just asked Slackbot, give me the best and most impressive customer stories in Sydney, specifically Sydney, and I got a bunch of different, stories surfaced up to me. And actually now a cool thing is that it's communicating with Agentforce agents. I just noticed that in beta for us as kind of beta testers internally, which is so exciting. But the second way to sort of experience AI to train teams, which I think is often overlooked, is observability, which I know is such an exciting word, right? Observability and metrics, but it's the way I experience Agentforce on a day-to-day basis. So we, obviously deployed Agentforce on our help site. We also deployed it on our website. And my website manager overnight became an agent manager. And I'll tell you how, because now he doesn't just build a bunch of random web pages because I tell him to. He looks at what we call our utterance analysis dashboards, right? He's looking at what are people actually asking us in this chat window on our website. And that dictates the pages that we build, the campaigns that we build, and how we then go and feed in better context into the agent. It's this virtuous cycle, and it's incredibly exciting as a marketer because it's completely changed the way we think about input from customers and really making better campaigns, better content as a result.
The first thing that in the hallmark we've got is a responsible data use policy at Xero. It's been sort of that grounding of what we've done. Everything goes through that sort of that step first, so nothing happens around responsible data use. That's the hallmark of everything we do. There are checks. Everything starts at the pilot. Everything gets tested as very small percentages of releases. Constantly analysed, absolutely tested. Starts very small, starts as a pilot, and work through from that.
Let's link it back to maybe a mistake that people made early on with LLMs is that they got so excited that they kind of forgot about trust. And the first thing we launched right after ChatGPT launched was not a competitive product or anything like that. It was our Einstein Trust Layer. Because we knew that for our customers, they could not use these tools without the assurance that their data, their customer data, was not being leaked to a third-party system and being used to train a larger system. And we knew that because we went through that whole cycle with predictive AI of not using customer data to train a larger model. So I think that's what people often forget, is that when you're choosing an agentic platform, you kind of need like the equivalent of like eating your vegetables every day. You know, it's like you need your customer data to not leak. You need the tooling on observability to make sure that, you know, you don't have prompt injection attacks. And if you do, how are you correcting that? How are you correcting some of the conversations that an agent is having with a human on the other side? I think that's a really big part of it. And, you know, when you see these stories of, and I'm sure you were like bombarded when you visited the States of like, we're good, we have millions of agents in Glean, or we built agents here and there. If you take a closer look, right, a lot of those agents are a single prompt, which is fine, that can be creating a lot of value. But when we talk about like, why do we call it the agentic enterprise, other than like it sounds pretty cool? It means that it's an entire company-wide transformation, right? I mean, we have the C-suite right here talking about how engaged they are in these projects. And I do think that that's a gap in a lot of places, because you can have folks on your team building agents somewhere for something, but if no one's using them, and if your C-suite isn't bought in to really have that be the driving force between, you know, behind your customer transformation, then what do you really have?
I think the biggest challenge is this: what next, or where do you go? What order do you do it in? And this, again, this insatiable appetite that I have, hopefully as a visionary, about where do we want to play next? How do we think about multi-agents working together? How can an agent perhaps pass to another agent? And so in my mind, I'm thinking of the architecture side of things around where we want to play next, in which order would we do it in, what do we want to tackle next. That's the biggest opportunity, but also the biggest challenge I've got. I can't do it all. I've got to be really patient, probably the wrong word associated with me, but I've got to be very mindful in terms of how we actually set this up and do it in a way that looks and feels just the right thing to do.
Again, I think it's too early for us to have failure rates. We were really honest, brutally honest at the beginning about where we were broken and what we needed to fix. So therefore very selective about the pathways and the product that we embarked on. My frustration is that we're not doing things fast enough. So I sit there going, why have we got to failure? They're laughing. It's laughing at me, it's true. And then to the earlier comment, I should have answered as well, that ultimately, you know, the accountability sits with me, it doesn't sit on the team. So if we get it wrong, then I have to own that.
A lot of it comes with confidence or the ability to tell a story of successes that you've had. I think a clear vision and a strategy about what you're trying to achieve. I think I made the point before, but picking a use case, being able to identify, look for a very simple win to start with. I'll use an example in my keynote where we just simply wanted to see if customers would actually engage with the tool. For us, that was a success. It wasn't necessarily the other typical metrics that you would look at first up. So for us, it was around confidence. We saw partners, our accountants and bookkeepers engage. That gave us the confidence to go and be able to tell a story, share the story, and then have that vision. But I'm very lucky. I think, you know, there's a lot of tech companies, a lot of organisations that are very supportive, like to be informed, and I think that's part of the storytelling that you have to do.
You create absolute fear. What happens if we don't? And then you prove out the benefits of what we do.
I'd say two things. One that I alluded to earlier, I'd say role transformation. I would have never expected that my website manager, who's been building websites for 20 years, now is proficient in prompt engineering and understands utterance analysis. Like, completely took me by left field. Very different and very exciting because it really gives me hope that these roles can really transform, and they will if you have, you know, really successful projects like we've had go live. The second thing is I've been at Salesforce for almost 9 years, and it wasn't until we deployed Agentforce that I saw my CMO, who's my boss, our CRO, our head of revenue, and our head of service working together on the customer experience, like literally on the same calls with our CEO, breaking down any silos that we had, because we had a CEO level directive, right, of, you know, just do it, make it work. And it's it sounds so obvious, right? But to have a true customer experience transformation, you need everybody bought in at the highest levels, and you need them having honest conversations with each other to really build out what's best for the customer. You take all your priorities, you put them to the side, and you just laser focus on the customer. That was quite surprising to me.
After the panel, I interviewed 2 Salesforce customers who had very interesting stories to share about their experiences with Agentforce. The first was Andy Magee, CIO of Geocon. Geocon is a property developer and construction company that makes large residential apartments and commercial precincts. Geocon was a very early adopter. I mean, Salesforce was literally building the Agentforce platform while they deployed their first agent, a service bot, and they're just about to launch another agent in marketing. Here's Andy Magee, CIO at Geocon. You were launching your largest ever block of units in Canberra. I believe it was around 900 units. And this was an agent, you have to remind me, I think it was about handling defects and inquiries from the tenants, owners, tenants.
Tenants and so tenants, property managers and strata managers. And you're right, I think when we last spoke, we weren't aware of the outcome. So it was a bit of a trial by fire, given it was the largest unit plan registration in the ACT history. The good news is the service.
In ACT history.
Yes, correct. So it was 840 something apartments in a single stage. So,
and this is your first ever agent. You're just going to set it live on the biggest.
Yep, it was a trial by fire. The good news is, although we did have some early tweaking, it absolutely did what it was supposed to do. So what the outcome was we were able to effectively take that huge volume of defects that come through in that initial defect, we call it DLP period, defect liability period. So the first 90 days, massive spike. We were able to take that inquiry and funnel it through what used to be a human-centric system. So we would have people sitting there, the service tickets would come in, they would understand which unit they were in, they would fill in the missing pieces to a ticket because we never had complete data adherence when someone would fill that information in. They would understand what the issue was. They would then get it to the relevant subcontractor, bring in the agent.
And what kind of issues, like leaks?
So, I mean, common issues are painting. Painting's the most common. So it would be, I've got a scratch here, I've got a chip here, but it can be anywhere from that to water leak. So what the agent would do is it would work with the person inquiring to understand what that problem was.
This is a chatbot interface?
Bot, yep. So it's embedded on our service, Geocon service public website. People would interact with it. Its first actionable item would be, like I said, to understand the problem. Then what it would do is understand which property they were in. And this is some of the information we used to not necessarily have up front. People would be very quick to say what their problem is, maybe wouldn't be able to give context to where they're actually living. So there would be a lot of back and forth. Traditionally, the agent, its job was to qualify all that information as a part of its interaction. And without that, it couldn't lodge the ticket. So it would continue to have an open line of communication with the person inquiring until it was able to collect all of those critical pieces of information, pieces of data that we require to pass that ticket to a subcontractor.
And that was all through the conversation. It wasn't through integrating with any of your services, like looking up the phone numbers of the tenants or anything like that?
No, absolutely not. So, I mean, the beauty of Agentforce, we have that context in the CRM. Now, because these are tenants, these are not people who are our customers. These might be investors who have a tenant in their property. And this is where this blind spot was for us. We have to service these people. We have a liability as the builder to be able to fix these defects, but they're not our customer. So we don't have that information on our CRM. We don't know who they are when they talk to us. So what this agent was doing was building that profile and actually creating a tenant record and associating with them with that property. So subsequent conversations they might have with our agent, it would be able to identify them and understand that they were in that property. Any change to that, it would update the record as well.
How did it go? So you unleashed it on 840 units. How did it compare to handling all those by humans?
Well, huge. Like I said, it wasn't without some adjustment in the early days, but we knew that would be required. It's not, you can't expect to build something like that and have an absolutely frictionless experience. So we got a bit of feedback from the subcontractor end. So we've kind of got 3 customers here. We've got what Geocon's requirement is. We've got the customer or the tenant or the property manager, and we've also got the subcontractor, and they've all got different needs and different views as to what they want. So we work with them very early on, very open line of communication to understand where there were shortcomings. But ultimately what we're able to deliver was a solution that was able to take that huge influx and get it into the subcontractor's hands with completed data through that critical period.
So one of the big announcements since we last spoke, since Agentforce last year, was the introduction of deterministic algorithms to Agentforce. Were you missing out on that functionality? Have you used it? What are your thoughts?
So we didn't architect our original agent with it. We created a table of understanding, so to speak. So, where this is mentioned, we did have some stuff around particular keywords that would invoke a particular action. Something like a water leak would invoke a critical or an urgent job for us. And that's because there's danger, not just from a tenant or an owner's point of view, but also as the builder. A water leak can cause damage to other apartments. So we built that kind of logic in and hard-coded it rather than using some of the deterministic stuff that they can now do. It definitely is an area that I'd like to go back and have a look at and see is there further that we can develop this agent. But as it stands, it was actually able to do a really good job based on the way we architected it.
Okay, so that was your first agent. What have you been thinking about doing in the past 12 months? Have you released any other agents?
We are in the final stages of testing an SDR agent, so sales development rep. So this agent sits between the incoming leads that we're ingesting on the sales side of the business, incoming leads, and we work with a channel sales network. So we don't have an internal sales team. We bring in our organic inquiry from our marketing campaigns, and we send that out to one of many agents or agencies. So the idea of this agent is it will sit there. It will actually interact with the lead prior to a human agent getting that lead. And what its job here is to get that initial outreach quite quickly. So if someone inquires on a Sunday evening at 9 p.m. at night, they're able to get an outreach email, Agentforce touching base with them really, really quickly within sort of 3 to 10 minutes. And that's contextual as well. It knows who they are based on the lead source they came in via. If they inquired about a particular project, it understands which project. So its initial outreach isn't vanilla. It's, hey, I know you're interested in this. Can I provide you some extra context information? Here's the kinds of things I can answer. And where we've been able to take that to is within the context of a conversation that someone might have with this agent, it's now able to do things like recommend restaurants in the direct vicinity, schools, all of the kinds of peripheral questions that someone might have, not necessarily about our product. I wanted to think outside that. So people normally, first thing they jump to is, well, we need to be able to explain the product. It does that. It can explain the amenity of the particular project and key bits of information about living there. But I wanted it to become something that could actually help someone understand if they wanted to live there. So
how does it do that? Because obviously you can feed all sorts of context about the marketing brochures and so on about the building, but you're talking about schools and transport and so on. Where are you pulling that information from?
So we build a profile of the area based on and this is in, like I said, the late stages of testing. But what we're able to do is build using AI as well, but build a profile, an area profile of our project or our product. And that's not concentrating on the product itself. It's concentrating on, and this is templated, but key bits of information that I think someone purchasing or potentially purchasing an apartment would need to know. We worked on what that profile needs to look like. We looked at the kind of inquiry we get through human agents, and then we built in a template so that it's able to answer those critical bits of information. And from there, what it appears like is a really, really smart agent that can actually service all those needs in one conversation.
So talk me through the business case. How did you choose this? What are your expectations in terms of the benefit it's going to bring to you, to the business?
Yeah, so I think what we want it to bring is an ability in what is quite a tough market at the moment. But I mean, this is a solution that can scale. It's the best thing about AI, it can scale. What we typically see in a hot market is when we're working with channel agents, that time to get back, that initial outreach, that can be 3 days. That's quite typical. But what we know of people who purchase property is it's really critical to strike when the iron's hot. If someone inquires about a product, they're probably inquiring through 3 or 4 other developers. And often that speed to engage and that speed to actually give meaningful information and attract that purchaser or potential purchaser is really critical. So those first 3 days can be really, really detrimental to whether you actually get that person through a property or they've gone to your competition. So my idea here was, how do we put something in place that regardless of when we bring the service to the customer, rather than have an agent, a human agent, have to book something in, get that first phone call, leave a message on an answering machine. We're able to do that when it makes sense to the customer.
So essentially, aiming to increase conversions for these kinds of inquiries will lead to greater sales conversion.
That's the key, right? Well, it's twofold. One is we want to actually provide a better customer experience. So the other side to this agent is what we don't want to do is sit AI in the middle, and if we have someone come into this agentic loop and then feel like they're answering questions before they can, it's like a gatekeeper trying to get to an agent. What we wanted to do is have frictionless handoff as well. So we're looking for those escalation prompts where someone clearly needs to actually be moved to an agent. And we offer that at any point where they can actually break that loop and push that inquiry straight to the agent. But while they're engaged, we want it to be able to answer all the kinds of questions that a human sales development rep a good one would be able to answer.
Okay, so taking a step back, it's been 12 months roughly since the last one. What is your expectation of how frequently you can launch these agents? Because, there must be an infinite number of potential use cases, right? And I'm wondering what's the load is it on you and on your team and so on to roll out an agent that is vetted and is going to do what it's supposed to?
Interesting question if you ask me or ask my boss. I think that there's an expectation that we should be always considering where we can place agentic AI, particularly with Agentforce, where there is a spot for it. And I think there's already a lot of other peripheral use cases that we want to look at further. The reality is not all of them will make sense to our business. The investment might be too high and the outcome, the ROI might not make sense. But I think in a business like ours, we try to run fairly lean. I think that there's definitely some further use cases we want to develop. I think that the idea of a thoroughly thought out agent is sort of a yearly cycle. But the reality is the tools that we have are getting better. So the speed to be able to go from concept to testing should theoretically just be getting faster and faster.
So what are the constraints? Because I'm sure you would like to run lean. I'm sure your CEO would love to add a whole bunch of agents that would reduce headcount and or be able to scale, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, correct. So there's a few things we look at from an ROI sense. There's human effort, replacing human effort. Now, whether that means replacing people with agents or whether that means being able to cross-skill, upskill, move humans into more relevant and helpful areas for the business. I think the constraints for really complex agents, similar to, say, for instance, what we built with the service agent is it's still not something, unless you've got a larger team, that we're probably able to do. It's still something we look to a partner, particularly from an architecture point of view. We're working hand in hand with them. We're doing a lot of the legwork, but there is still a layer that I think that most organisations, there's a hurdle that we can't quite jump over yet. And I know from being here today that they are definitely moving in the right direction. They'll market it as something that is able to, your average punter can jump in and, hey, presto, 20 minutes later you have an agent. The reality is it's not quite that easy. I think the better your data is, the more likely it is that you can actually have an agent that does have that context and you can activate and it can be helpful. The reality is, though, most organisations don't have that data adherence and governance down, and that's the first thing you realise when you start to move into these agentic.
So the hurdles, the barriers are not technology as such, it's more the governance side of it, getting the company match fit.
Yep, spoke about it on stage today, absolutely. And I think everyone jumps to we want the solution bit, and then they realise, well, you start to get, it doesn't quite do what you want it to do. And then you realise it's not because of the technology. The technology is actually really sound. It's typically your data.
But does it get easier? I mean, you've done a service agent. Now you're doing a sales agent. Does that so you're basically getting the data into shape as you go?
Yeah. So there's been definitely. I think that pre-Agentforce, we were very aware of the data governance, and this really came from a marketing sense, the understanding of our customer. Obviously, when Agentforce rolled around, that became more important. We know that good AI needs good data governance and good engine to drive it. So we were lucky that we'd actually spent a few years really trying to bed down what that looked like for our organisation. But I think that a lot of organisations maybe again they jump to the let's look at the solutioning and then realise their data's not quite where it is.
You've done a service agent. You're doing a sales agent. Is there a difference between the two in terms of one is easier than the other, given that Salesforce is obviously a sales organisation?
That's a good question. And I think I can actually, one is easier than the other, and that would be the sales development rep, but not necessarily because of the complexity, although I think it is maybe slightly less technically complex. But I think that when we attacked the SDR as a project, Salesforce actually pushed the product along a fair bit. When we were one of the extremely early adopters, we were on their pilot phase for the service agent. And we found that as we were building it, the tools underneath us were changing as we were developing. So there was a lot of rework because Salesforce would change something. We'd go back and we'd change it. So that settled a lot. The SDR actually is almost a subset of Agentforce product where they've got a sales development agent, and then you go and customize it from there. So it's got a lot of predefined settings that you can just toggle, enable for your data. So definitely getting it off the ground a lot easier.
So stepping back from the bleeding edge to the cutting edge just saves you a bit of skin.
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome, thanks. Good to see you, Andy.
Absolutely, likewise, mate. Hope we do it again.
Clearly, it helps with agents if you are a tech company. Farm Focus has rolled out 3 agents straight after migrating to 5 or 6 products from Salesforce, all within the space of 12 months. Here's Blair Rooney, Head of Growth for Farm Focus.
Farm Focus is a SaaS product for farmers, been around 45 years. It's sort of come through all the evolution of technology from floppy disk to right through to cloud. And then obviously the AI sort of era is kind of the fourth wave of innovation. So we support farmers with their financial decisions, GST, compliance, planning ahead, making decisions,
These agents that you're rolling out, did you learn how to do that yourself internally? Are you working with a consultancy?
We've tried to do it ourselves. This has been part of a wider AI strategy for the business. I mean, like as you would be talking to a lot of businesses about, it's prevalent across every company. AI is coming, if you like it or not, and businesses need to adapt. So we've taken quite a macro view of the business and been talking about how we can integrate it into our product, into our business, and also help the people we've got working there, but also the customers as well. So we're doing it as part of a wider piece of work.
So let me just understand, you've only been a Salesforce customer for 12 months and you've already rolled out 3 types of agents?
Yep, 3 agents. We've also rolled out 4 products as well with Salesforce product suite. So we're end-to-end Salesforce now as a business.
What were the Salesforce products you rolled out?
Service, Marketing Cloud. We actually have 2 marketing products. We have the Agentforce marketing product and we have the Marketing Cloud account engagement as well. We have service and sales. And also Slack, so I guess 6, so Slack as well, because we've been a Slack customer for about 10 years, so yeah.
Right, that's quite a lot to get done in 12 months.
It is, yeah. It was an intense project. We did it in about 3 months, and we replaced a lot of tools doing so, yeah.
I guess it's the advantage of being a technology company is that you can roll out technology projects fast.
Yeah, I always think there's enough pain in a business, people are willing to move quickly, and I think change management was really a big part of that. So we needed to bring the teams on the journey, and everyone was quite invested in the project by the time we kicked off. So,
okay, so you made the decision 12 months ago, 3 months to roll out all of these Salesforce products, and then straight into building agents after that point.
Yeah.
What was the first one you started with?
Yeah, service. So service was the main one that was available at the time. As they've rolled it out, they've had multiple platforms. So they've had Agentforce, the first version, second, third, and now 4th. So we started with some really small use cases on the service. We didn't roll that out initially, like right away. We sort of wanted to see what was going to come because it was still very basic at the start of when they brought it out. We probably brought it out about 6 months ago, fully across all our customers. That was one use case that we saw straight away that would work, because we have a service centre, a customer success team who deal with all our customers every day via phone. We have about 12,000, 13,000 chats a year, and we saw a very quick reduction, and we could reduce cost on that. Not that we didn't want to hear from our customers, it was more we could see that the value that the customer could get by getting the answer quicker was actually better for them, and inevitably let our team actually take more calls.
So roughly 1,000 chats a month, and how many was the agent able to handle?
76%.
Wow, that's quite a high number.
High. Yeah, it is high. And look, I'll be honest, we've had to refine that. And I think everyone that uses AI will know that it's not perfect. So we've had to actively go through and check it and make sure, in sense, check what it's doing, because this whole autonomous agents thing is kind of a bit scary for people, especially with what we do, because it's financial, product, so we don't want to be giving advice. There's a lot of guardrails we want to make sure we have around it as well.
76%, that's 700 responses every month. How were you able to get the confidence that it was answering accurately across such a large number of responses?
Yeah, so with Salesforce's releases, every time they've released, they've brought out new products that allow you to test a lot more. So there's you've got the agent builder itself, which allows you to test all the topics and have all the rules and the topics and the guardrails within that. And then there's also a testing kind of center within Agentforce now that allows you to upload all the questions, like potential questions, and test them, and then run that as like a script, and then that'll give an answer and show you what the exact answers would be. And then we've refined like that. But we've also gone through chats as they come in. We have people that will look and check the quality, but also Salesforce does have tools that will tell you, likely based on the sentiment and the responses from the customer, likely if it actually answered the question or not as well.
Okay, so you can see how many people are pissed off and say, oh, that answer's probably wrong, high likelihood.
Yeah. And one of the challenges we had is we have a product that's quite complex, probably similar to Salesforce, right? There's a lot of products, a lot of features, a lot of different nuances to those features as well. So trying to train an AI to understand the context of our product was really hard as well, because we talk about GST, and then there's a GST return, and then there's different terms that are used, and AI tries to just wants to answer the question. So we've had to really try and refine it so it doesn't just give an answer, it actually thinks.
What has the accuracy been like for its responses from over since you installed it and ongoing?
Yeah, I would say it's about 80% accurate. Yeah, there's a few like times where it'll give an answer that's like right, but it needs to be refined on maybe one of the it's made up maybe something where a button might be, or it's it doesn't know what the product looks like, but it'll just click that button or click this thing because it's read it in a help center article or somewhere. So it's trying to just make sure that our content we're also giving it is accurate.
You're constantly updating your product. Buttons are moving, screens are changing. How effective was the service agent at keeping up with that?
With the way that it retrieves the data, it retrieves it at the time that it's the question's asked. So if it helps into articles, because we have everything's built on Salesforce, so we bring in that data from Knowledge or through Data Cloud. It knows that data in the moment. We have a great education team who update our resources daily throughout the month. So as they're getting updated, the things are becoming more and more accurate. But what we have noticed is accuracy is more around us being quite concise around how we're giving answers as well. So when we're talking about content we're writing, the more targeted, bullet pointed 1, 2, 3, 4, AI can definitely use that better than a paragraph it's got to understand that paragraph, and there might be an example. Trying to limit the margin for error is important as well.
Service agent clearly was a success then. If that's 75% is massive, 76%. The next agent, was that marketing, did you say? And what was the process that you were aiming to automate?
Yeah, so marketing was that's my realm of what I do is marketing. So what I saw when I first started at the company was that we didn't have first of all didn't have a tool that was centralizing all the data in one place. We didn't really know who our customers were, what they were doing, giving them the right message at the right time. We couldn't do that. So what we did was we went through a process of getting all the data into one platform and then being able to sort of enrich data on our customers that we already had. And then we've managed to, from there, bring in a product called Agentforce Marketing, which we hear about today a lot. It's built on the Salesforce platform, which allows you to use the data you've already got. And then with Data Cloud or Data 360, you're able to bring more data in on top of those customers and then use that to actually build campaigns, briefs, and generally just be able to target customers really easily. So one of the best features that I really like is the campaign segment agent, which allows you to build segments of all your customers with just writing natural language prompts like, I want a farmer that's in New South Wales, is doing dairy, and maybe they haven't logged in 30 days. And because it knows your data, and it's all built on the same platform, it can build that segment for us. That used to take us 3 weeks and $10,000 potentially of people's time to pull a segment like that. We'd have a whole data team pulling segments. Now my marketing team can do that in about 30 seconds.
Have you been able to measure the benefit to the business directly?
Couple of numbers. So first of all, the cost reduction of bringing Salesforce in was around 1.1 million per year. So that's saved us about 1.1 million.
In app stack saving costs?
Between resource and apps and external resource we've been using, we've been able to reduce that. 90% time to value with marketing campaigns, so 90% reduction in time. So that's from being able to create an EDM, the segment, sending it out, measuring it, 90% reduction in time. So something that would take a week now takes half a day.
And then you said there's a third agent as well, is that right?
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at the moment, and it's not quite live yet. So Slack is the tool that we use more than anything else. We've had it for a long time. I think we'd maybe sent like 5 or 6 million messages through Slack, and we had all these files everywhere. And what we found is because we're quite we're a small to medium business. We've got about 40 staff. So all those 40 staff are creating documents and lists and they're having meetings and recordings and transcripts all throughout different apps. What Slack's allowing us to do with, there's something called Slackbot, which has come out. Someone's looking for something about a customer or looking for a meeting or looking for that file. It'll go out to all your applications you've got and bring in all the data on that particular thing you've asked for, and it will give you an answer in Slack. Now, normally that would take our business, well, I know myself trying to find a file sometimes can take 20, 30 minutes to find one file. That will do it in couple of seconds.
So massive productivity benefit lift across the whole organisation.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, as I said, about that whole wider business AI strategy is that we're not actually just looking at throwing AI into our product for our customers. We want to, give them efficiency as well. But as a business, how can we do more with less, but also do more to help our customers as well? So that time we were otherwise spending on something else, we can be spending more time actually, doing more marketing, doing more customer success, doing more education, rather than sitting in the office trying to do admin.
Also interested whether you're looking at any other agentic platforms outside of Salesforce.
Heaps. I feel like the AI era is going to almost be like it's like the cloud era where there's all these apps that came out. I feel like everyone's going to end up with 5 or 10 or 20 different AI apps. I feel like maybe we are going towards another stack of all these apps that we're going to end up paying for. But I think the one that I want to call out is we're working with AWS. So we're doing a Bedrock project. We're actually launching it now. It's in beta. It's going to be out very, very shortly. It's variance insights on the financial performance. It's comparing, multi-farms. It's looking at all your reports, giving you some analysis on that. So rather than just looking at a static A4 piece of paper with some numbers on it, it's going to give you some really deep understanding of your business based on the data that's in your farm or in your financial system. And then what we are building off the top of that as well as a farm assistant that's going to allow you to query all your data. So we're gonna have that rolled out in the next month or so. It allows farmers to be able to basically ask any question they want around their data, and it will hopefully add some value to them. It's very early days at the moment, but we are seeing some great use cases for that for our customers.
What's the experience like using AWS Bedrock versus Agentforce?
I think you'll find a lot of it's built on the same platform. I'm pretty sure Agentforce is built on AWS. So I think a lot of these products people are using. I think Agentforce is just another product that allows you to build AI very quickly. And I think one of the things that I think the people that will win the AI race was the people that allow people like me who is semi-technical but isn't an engineer, isn't a developer, but can go in and build something and deploy it myself without having to have an engineer or some really technical person do it. I think that's why Salesforce is going to potentially win that agentic race, because other systems like Bedrock, AWS, and the likes, OpenAI, or that, you need to have deep technical understanding to, first of all, build that layer and then build a product over top of it. For us with Agentforce, it just allows us to, it's very easy. And it means that anyone in the business can build these agents.
You see it more breaking down as multiple platforms by use case based on time to value.
I think we're gonna see a shift in the world back to microservice type operators where, I mean, you look at Lovable and these quick, these vibe coding type platforms. People are able to build an app and deploy something on their own with a database with all the stuff in there, with security, with logins, without knowing any code. So for us, I think we will use a tool that works at the moment. I don't think we want to have like 20 or 30 different platforms that are running our product, but we chose AWS to start with because our product's built on AWS. It felt like a natural first step, but I think we will work with whatever vendor will give the most value at the time. And at the moment, that is Salesforce and AWS.
Thanks very much, Blair.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So that's a taste of Agentforce in Sydney. In more on Agentforce, please let me know in the comments. There are some great CIOs doing some really cutting edge stuff in this space. My name is Sholto. This is Scale 100. See you next time.